Good Yontif, everyone, and Shabbat Shalom. We can't begin tonight without acknowledging that the bright light of promise that this day represents has been dimmed by the recent loss of Supreme Court Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg. Justice Ginsburg was a giant indeed, little in stature, but a giant, a bright light of hope, possibility, and promise. She was a steadfast beacon of justice. And it is somehow fitting that she would be called to God's side on this Yom Hadin, this day when our focus is on tzedek, on justice. So we will do what she would insist that we do, what we must do on this day. Let the hope and promise which both she and this day represent continue to shine forth. And so we now welcome you here to join us for this very unique High Holy Day experience.
We welcome you who are members of University Synagogue, and we welcome guests who are joining us from literally all around the world.
When it became apparent several months ago that we would not be able to join together in our beautiful sanctuary, our clergy, staff, and community leadership set to work creating the online worship experience that we will engage in over the course of these High Holy Days. We hope that you will find these worship experiences beautiful, meaningful, uplifting, and inspiring.
If you are a member of our University Synagogue family, we hope that you have picked up your High Holy Day gift box. Inside, you will find many items meant to enhance your worship experience. Among those items is our gold Mishkan HaNefesh Rosh Hashanah Machzor, our prayer book that we will be using. We encourage you to use this prayer book as we progress through our worship tonight and tomorrow morning.
You will also find in your box tea lights with which you can join us in welcoming Shabbat and Rosh Hashanah and a challah to join us in Mozi at the conclusion of our evening service.
And parents, you will also find packets of specially curated materials to enhance your children's experience as we worship together.
For our guests joining us here this evening and for these High Holy Days who might not have a prayer book, there's no need to fret. Most of the text will be displayed on your screen.
While we sadly can't join our voices together in communal prayer and sing this year, We hope that you will lift your voices anyways. It will add greatly to your experience and to our worship together.
And if you have the ability through your YouTube account, we invite you to use the chat and comment functions there to send greetings to each other or to the community as a whole.
Lastly, we encourage you as we worship together to create a mikdash me'at, a small sanctuary within your home. Take the time to make the space in which you are joining us reflect the sanctity and beauty of these days. If you haven't done so already tonight, no worries. We still have plenty of time before tomorrow morning's service. And we encourage you to turn off all other distractions so that you can be fully present with us in this moment.
And so now, Bruchim Habayim, we welcome you into this sacred moment. We pray that your reflections during these holy days will help you to reconnect with that which brings you meaning and to that which brings purpose to all your days.
Hashanah tova u'mitaka tikatevu.
May you be blessed with a sweet and good year. We continue now with Hineni as our University Synagogue clergy prepare for the solemn task of guiding our community's journey through these high holy day season.
Hineni. Before we begin our teshuvah, our repentance, before we begin these days of awe, before we begin this new year, before we begin to offer praise and to offer thanks, we begin with this prayer of humility, this prayer of self-awareness to the fear, the awe, and the weight of this moment. We, the University Synagogue community, we begin this new year together, and so we offer these words.
Hineni, here I am. Here we are, distant yet connected, each in our individual homes, away from our congregational home, overwhelmed by the pain and confusion of this past year, yet heartened by the beauty of others that has shined through the darkness.
Tonight and in the coming days, we will pray for strength, we will pray for inspiration, and we will pray that soon we may return to you, our God, and return to each other, the souls and smiles in which we see the reflection of God.
God of Abraham and Sarah, God of Moses and Miriam, be with us these days of awe as you have been with the generations past. Open our eyes to see your beauty, open our ears to hear your call, open our hearts to receive your compassion.
God of all generations, open our mouths to sing your praise. Open for us the gates of this new year with promise and possibility, with renewal and redemption. Away from the familiar space of our communal prayers, God, may our prayers these high holy days be acceptable to you.
We now begin to pray as individuals, as members of this synagogue community, as souls connected to the Jewish people around the world, by lifting our hearts and voices in prayer as we guide each other yet again through the wilderness, but determined to reach that promised land.
Hineni, here I am. These words take on a different meaning tonight. Typically, they acknowledge that while we stand here in our sanctuary shoulder to shoulder with our family and friends, that it is a uniquely personal journey that we are about to make. But this night, of course, is different. For it is not only the spiritual journey that feels uniquely our own, but this year our physical journey mirrors the spiritual one we are about to make. Rather than coming into our sacred space with this beautiful ark behind me and amazing stained glass, With Sifrei Torah adorned in the simple beauty of the season, we find ourselves in our homes. Some are gathered as family, and some more starkly isolated in this sacred moment. As we say Hineni tonight, we are confronted with the challenge of creating sacred space in our own homes, space that will support us spiritually, lifting up our prayers and deepening our intent. Our home, of course, is also a sacred space, a mikdash ma'at, a small sanctuary. There is likely a mezuzah on your doorpost as a reminder of just this fact. As you enter, it is there as a reminder that you are indeed entering a sacred space. In the book of Exodus, God gives us this instruction. Va'asu li mikdash v'shachanti b'tocham. Make me a sanctuary that I might dwell among you. Tonight, and for the duration of these holy days, I encourage you to create for yourself a sanctuary in your home. A separate space adorned with items that bring you meaning, that give a sense of calm and peace. Items that lift your spirit and make you aware of God's presence dwelling with you. Create a space in which you can say, Hineni, here I am. That, in the words of the prophet Isaiah, my house will be called a house of prayer. I invite you now to turn in your Machzor, our High Holiday Prayer Book, to page 16, and to take a few moments for quiet reflection and preparation as we prepare to enter this sacred time. It's now my honor and great blessing to welcome our community's co-presidents, Fern Topa Salka and Jennifer Harmon, to share with us a message of welcome and to lead us in the kindling of the Shabbat and festival lights, which you'll find in your prayer book on page 11. And if you have your own candles, I hope you will join with Fern and Jen in welcoming Shabbat and the new year into your own home.
I'm Fern Topaz Salka, co-president with Jen Harmon. Good Yontif and Happy New Year. Although our congregation is not able to meet in person this year, we are very grateful that we can be with you, though from a distance, during these special times. During these last several months, we, along with you, have learned that physical distancing is not the same as being disconnected. We've seen that the lack of a shared physical space does not mean that we cannot join together to be touched, to create, and to grow.
In fact, to our delight, over the past half year, we've continued to do many things we did for the quarantine, and best yet, many activities and new relationships have formed and flourished in unanticipated ways. We have held many creative services which are so well attended that we take up multiple Zoom screens. Other offerings like Torah study, yoga, and film discussions, and sisterhood chats are not only well attended, but they attract new members and outsiders who have expanded and enriched our community. We've carried out volunteer social action efforts in our synagogue by congregating on virtual platforms. We've also been able to nourish our children in innovative ways. The little ones participate in bedtime Shema and story time, as well as Havdalah and taught Shabbat with clergy. Our older kids are active in group learning and ongoing social events on Zoom. Our congregation remains vibrant.
We look forward to the day that we can once again add picnics and carnivals, dinners and dances, praying and singing together, real pats on the back, and hugs and kisses to our shared membership experience. Then, when we can be together again, we will put our arms around each other in Hine Matov, Umanayim, Shevet Achim Gam Yachad. Behold how good and how pleasant it is for people to dwell together. Until then, we wish you L'Shana Tova, U'Refuach, a happy and healthy new year, and may you be inscribed in the book of life. On this first night of our High Holy Days, we begin our services with the lighting of the candles and the reciting of the Shehechianu. As we recite the Shehechianu, perhaps you can think of your Shehechianu moment, a glorious moment in the midst of this difficult year. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kitshanu b'mitzvotav, v'tzivanu lehadlik ner shel Shabbat v'yom tov.
Blessed are you, eternal our God, creator of the universe, who has commanded us to light the Sabbath and holiday candles.
Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, shehechianu, v'kimanu, v'higianu, lazman hazeh. Amen.
Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, borei peri hagafen. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, asher bachar banu mikol ha'am, v'romemhanu mikol hashon, v'kiddishanu b'mitzvotav. V'titein lanu Adonai Eloheinu b'ahava et yom haShabbat hazeh ve'et yom hazikaron hazeh, yom teruah mikra kodesh zecher litziat Mitzrayim. Kivanu v'acharta ve'otanu kidashta mikol ha'amim. Udevarecha emet ve'kayam lad. Baruch atah Adonai, melech al kol haaretz, mekadesh haShabbat veYisrael, v'yom hazikaron. Baruch
words of Shema invite us to listen for the voice of God within our own hearts. And when we come together during the days of awe, we also have the chance to listen to one another's voices. And as I stand here in this beautiful sanctuary, I imagine your voices singing with me. And I hope that at home, you can also imagine your friends and family surrounding you as we join in prayer together. Shema. When Rosh Hashanah falls on Shabbat, like it does this year, we join together in the words, Vishamru v'nei Yisrael et ha-Shabbat, entreating us to keep Shabbat. Ahad Ha'am, the founder of cultural as opposed to religious Zionism, once said, "More than Jews have kept Shabbat, Shabbat has kept the Jews." The word Vishamru comes from the same root as the word shomer, meaning to guard. As we sing this uplifting melody of Vishamru, this year especially, may we be inspired to safeguard the beautiful inheritance of Shabbat as much as it sustains us. Vishamru v'nei Yisrael et ha-Shabbat, la'asot et ha-Shabbat l'dorotam berit olam. Vishamru v'nei Yisrael et ha-Shabbat, la'asot et ha-Shabbat l'dorotam berit olam.
We come now to the heart of our worship, HaTefilah, the prayer. Now, while this section of our worship is comprised of many prayers, it is considered to actually be one long extended prayer, drawing us in and connecting us to that which is essential and at the core of our humanity, our godly essence. We are connected to our ancestral roots and to our source of power, as well as to that which makes us sacred, unique, and holy. We connect as well to our sacred task, to our sense of gratitude, and ultimately pray for the peace we might find in all of that reconnection to the divine which resides at the core of each of our being. These days in particular, we are urged to remember that here is the source of our life, that which gives meaning and purpose to the length of our days. As we turn now to the Tefillah, I invite you to turn in your prayer books to pages 44 through 46, and if you so desire and are able, to please rise.
Avinu Malcanu. As we prepare to sing these glorious words, we link our souls with the generations who came before us, the generations who sang these beautiful words, generations who found themselves safe and secure, and generations who found themselves in uncertain times. In this moment, we link our souls with all of them. We find ourselves praying at home, longing for our temple. So we connect with those generations who longed for their temple. These words, Avinu Malcanu, cry out our faith and our hope in an ever-present God who can comfort us, who can guide us. Reflecting on this past year, moving into this next year, we call out to God. We call out to one another in which we see the beauty of God. Comfort us. Be with us. Strengthen us. Let us sing these words into this new year. Let us join together. Avinu Malcanu, our rock, our protector, our Redeemer.
25 years ago, way back in the last century, Turner Pictures released the movie Michael. Maybe you remember it. The movie tells the story of two reporters, William Hurt and Robert Pastorelli, who travel to a small town in Iowa with an angel expert played by Andy McDowell in order to investigate reports of an angel who has taken up residence there. When they meet the angel, Michael, played by John Travolta, he turns out to be a cigarette-smoking, boxer-wearing, sugar-addicted, overweight, unshaven guy with wings, the kind that don't detach. And each begins asking Michael questions based on their preconception of an angel. And after trying to respond to many of their questions, Michael finally shrugs his shoulders, shakes his head, and responds, "I'm not that kind of an angel." No kidding. Just like those dubious investigators who could not accept the image of the angel in front of them, our preconceptions and limited perceptions may likewise make us skeptical of the portrayal in our liturgy of Michael's boss. You know, the big guy, the head honcho, Adonai, Elohim, judge, ruler of the universe, Avinu Malcanu, Yud He Vav He, God. And I get it. Many of the images we're asked to accept, like that of judge of life and death, determiner of our fate, in the Unatana Tokef, which is such a significant part of the liturgy of this season, may be quite problematic. Many find their path through the high holidays blocked by an off-putting array of theological images. For them, and perhaps for you, that is simply the end of the journey. The moment we run up against an image of God that doesn't work, we may reply, "Not my kind of God," and just give up on the whole God thing. Perhaps it is when a childhood image of God no longer works for us, or in a moment of exceptional personal struggle. Where were you, God? I can't tell you how often over the course of my career someone has approached me and said, "Rabbi, I have to make a confession. I don't believe in God." "Tell me about the God you don't believe in," I ask. And when they do, 9 times out of 10, my response is, "Yeah, that's not my kind of God either." In fact, there are many images of God to which we likely can all respond in unison, "Not my kind of God." Images of God that simply fall outside the boundaries of Jewish faith, for instance. Or a God who loves some of humanity more than others? Or a God who demands absolute loyalty, wreaking havoc on those who fall out of line for even the most minor of infractions? Or a God of whom we can only say, "It's just beyond our limited understanding. These are just not my kind of God." And we probably feel ourselves comfortably distant from much of this kind of thinking, but just how far from it are we really when we ask in times of personal angst and despair, "Why are you punishing me, God? Where are you?" Questions many of us may be asking in this very, very difficult moment. When we try to find some answer for God's invoking pandemics, burning down the West Coast, causing earthquakes, or allowing for civil unrest, we are regressing into a kind of fundamentalist thinking that in our more rational moments, we would probably all agree is just not our kind of God. The God of my childhood, of my bar mitzvah, or even the God I wrote a theology paper about in seminary are also no longer my kind of God. Neither is Father or King or a God of any gender, color, sex that would suggests that some of us are created more in God's image than others. Heck, there are a lot of ways God is portrayed to which I also say, not my kind of God. But that doesn't have to be the end of the journey. Not surprisingly, I am a flag-waving believer in God. So tonight, as we enter the High Holy Days drama once again, I want to tell you it's okay to say, that's not my kind of God. As long as that is the starting place for a search to find the God of whom you can say, now this is my kind of God. Tonight I want to share with you just a bit about my kind of God, because I believe that the way we choose to think about God, or not, profoundly impacts how we understand who we are and how we respond to the world around us. As a starting place, and you may not know it, but saying, not my God, places you in very good company. No less than the great rabbi, doctor, and philosopher Moses Maimonides taught 1,000 years ago that when it comes to describing God, the most we can do is to talk about what God is not. God is not Him, not Father, not Redeemer, not Shekhinah, not Helper, not Healer. Because God is not any one thing. Our descriptions of God are human attempts to define the undefinable. After all, how are finite beings like us to understand no less to describe the infinite? All of our definitions are all of our definitions are limited and incomplete. The moment we try to define God as something, we put God in a box. Now think about that for a moment. We hate that when it's done to us, don't we? When we are objectified and labeled, we protest, that's not me. Or at least that's not all of me. And you can imagine God responding similarly, I'm not that kind of God. I'm pretty sure that is why we have the second commandment in the first place. You shall not make any engraved images or any likenesses. But there is one thing we can affirmatively say about God. God is. Not followed by an ellipsis, but by a period. God is. Period. Maimonides said just that, and so do we each time we sing his words in Adon Olam. Hu haya v'hu hoveh v'hu yiyeh b'tifara. God was, God is, God will be. Here, Maimonides is riffing on the Hebrew symbol for God, Yud, He, Vav, He, the unpronounceable word we read as Adonai. Yud, He, Vav, He is a conflation into one symbol of the past, present, and future conjugations of the verb to be. God is. Or more accurately, God was, is, will be. This is God's cryptic message to Moses at the burning bush. You'll recall that having been asked by God to take on the mission of freeing the Israelites, Moses expresses his doubts. How will the Israelites know that I am just not some lunatic, he asks. Who should I say has sent me on this crazy task? God mysteriously replies, Eheyeh asher eheyeh. Tell them Eheyeh sent you. Eheyeh asher eheyeh. That is, I will be what I will be. Tell them, I will be what I will be sent you. What? I will be a source of courage when you face Pharaoh. I will be a source of compassion when you face those in need. I will be a source of wisdom as you lead your people, and I will be a source of strength as you face a pandemic. I will be a source of comfort in your time of healing. Eheyeh asher eheyeh. God is a verb. A verb. God is being. Of course, that shouldn't be too much of a surprise to us because so are we, human beings. Or perhaps more hopefully on this day of creation and new beginnings, we are human becomings. That is the first thing we learn about our humanity, that we were created B'Tselem Elohim, in the image of a continually evolving, growing, changing, and becoming God. We, like God, are, is, and will be. Now here's why all of this matters. Because none of this is really about God at all. God doesn't need to know about God. We do. We do. To say that I am created in the image of an ever-evolving God is an aspirational message. My commitment to the idea of Tselem Elohim means I'm not done yet. I am called upon to be a partner with God, obligated to acts of love, of healing and justice, through which God's presence becomes a reality in our world. When I say I am created in God's image, I am acknowledging that for all I have become, for all that I have done, there's still more work to do in order to more ever become closer to that divine image. Now, this is certainly not my God alone. This is also the God of Isaiah, who will remind us on Yom Kippur morning that God is much more interested in our acts of love and justice than in our prayers. You see, for my kind of God, it is not my relationship with God that is most important, but rather my relationship with all those who are also created in God's image. My kind of God puts humanity at the center. Now, don't misunderstand me. I don't mean that in an egotistical, it's all about me way. What I do mean is that when push comes to shove, when it is a matter of priorities, for my God, concern for humanity precedes ritual acts through which I express my devotion to God. This isn't a new idea. In the Talmud, we find rabbis teaching just this. For instance, when there is only enough money for oil to light either household lights or Hanukkah lights, we are told that the comfort of the household takes precedence over the proclamation of God's miracle. Humanity first. Similarly, when a burial conflicts with the reading of the Purim Megillah, the respect for the mourners takes precedence over the proclamation of God's miraculous victory in Shushan. Divine beings take precedence over the divine. And what is it that we are instructed regarding the priorities in asking and granting forgiveness on these days? Humanity first. We must ask and grant forgiveness to each other before asking forgiveness of God. And perhaps the most revolutionary teaching of all in this regard is that of Rabbi Hillel. You likely know it well. When asked to teach the Torah while standing on one foot, he responds, "What is hateful to you, do not do to another." Now think about this for a minute. One of the greatest rabbis ever, when asked to teach about Judaism, does not choose a line of Torah. He could have quoted the passage from Leviticus that we will read on Yom Kippur. Love your neighbor as yourself. I am Adonai. In fact, Hillel is often misquoted as having said just this, but that's not what he said. Hillel purposefully avoids a particular Jewish reference in order to make the message more universal for his non-Jewish challenger. But more than that, he leaves God out completely. What does Hillel teach is the underlying principle of Torah. Not obey God, but treat every human the way you want to be treated. That is quite astounding, actually. For me, God is part of the equation. First, God is the role model to which I aspire. Tselem Elohim. And second, my personal theology challenges me to see every other human being as created in God's image and filled with godly potential. Now, whether they choose to act on that godly potential, as we are reminded during these days, is up to us. The choice, ultimately, is ours. So when I read Unatana Tokef, I'm not put off by the image of God depicted there. What I see is a poetic reminder that there is only so much I can control. And what is that? Well, I can control my moral awareness. This is the purpose of prayer. I can reorient my actions to better reflect the divine within me. This is repentance. And I can choose to pursue that which is just. That is tzedakah. Tefillah, prayer. Teshuvah, repentance. And tzedakah, the pursuit of justice. 3 categories of human behavior identified at the end of the Unatana Tokef, through which I can choose to act upon the divine image within me, and in so doing, bring God's presence to life in this world. By the end of the film, the minds and hearts of the protagonists have been opened, their perceptions broadened, as they come to realize that Michael really is an angel. They also come to realize that their understandings and experiences are indeed very limited. More importantly, through their experience, they discover something within them that they had previously been unable to see. This, in the end, was the purpose of Michael's visit in the first place: to challenge their beliefs, tefillah, to force them to look within, teshuvah, and to reevaluate and act differently in the world, tzedakah. Now, isn't that the purpose of these days? As we face challenging and even uncomfortable images, we too are challenged to acknowledge our own limited perspectives and understandings. Our task is to allow the prayers and reflections of these days to open our hearts and unfetter the chains that have limited the possibilities of our own lives, freeing ourselves to grow, to change, and to continue to evolve. These days challenge us to liberate the divine character within us, that we might realize and fulfill our God-given potential. After all, ultimately, we are asked to serve as God's messengers. God's presence and power is enacted through us. So when you next look in the mirror and see staring back a person who may be a little too scraggly, and maybe who likes sugar and caffeine just a bit too much, be assured that you are standing face to face with one of God's angels. L'Shana Tova and Shabbat Shalom. May it be for all of us a good and sweet new year. We now continue on page 82 with the Alenu. If you are able and would like to, I invite you to rise as we join together with Cantor Freilich.
We find the Alenu on page 81. And for those of you who are able, we now rise. Alenu l'shabheach l'adona hakol לתת גדולו ליוצר בראשית שלא עשנו כגויי הארצות ולא שמנו כמשפחות האדמה שלא שם חלקנו כהם וגורלנו ככל המונם ואנחנו חוראים ומי משתחווים ומודים לפני מלך מלכי המלכים הקדוש ברוך הוא.
We continue on page 288. Ve'nemar v'haya Adonai lemelech al kol haaretz bayom hahu yeh Adonai echad bayom hahu yeh Adonai echad u'shemo echad bayom hahu yeh Adonai echad. Rabbi Simons will lead us in a moment of memory.
Tonight, as we exit this past year and enter this new year, we bring with us our memories, those that we have lost in this past year, those that we have lost in years past that we remember during these high holy days. Jewish tradition teaches us that we do not say Kaddish for someone who has yet to be buried. As Rabbi Lutz mentioned at the beginning of our services, we entered into this Rosh Hashanah heartbroken and devastated with the loss of Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg. My friend and colleague right before services, Rabbi Sari Laufer, wrote that when someone passes away, we say, Baruch Dayan HaEmet, blessed is the true judge. Those words speak truth tonight. Bless the true justice. So we take a moment before we recite Kaddish Tome. We take a moment to remember those that we have lost in this past year. We take a moment of memory. If you are following along on YouTube and would like to write the name of someone you are thinking of in the chat, we ask you to do so. And in just a minute, we'll turn together to page 90 and offer these words of Kaddish. Yitkadal v'yikadash shemei Rabbah, v'yalma divrach chirutei v'yamlich malchutei, v'chayechon v'yomechon v'chayei d'chol Beit Yisrael, v'agala u'vizman kariv v'yimru amen. Yehei shmei Rabbah mevarach le'olam u'almei almaya, Yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yipa'ar v'yitramam v'yitnaseh, v'yitadar v'yitaleh v'yitalal shemei d'kudashah b'richu, Ve'ela min kol birchata v'shirata, tushbechata v'nechemata, da'amiran ve'alma v'yimru amen. Yehei shlama rabba min shemaya, v'chayim alenu ve'al kol Yisrael v'yimru amen. Oseh shalom b'imromav, hu ya'aseh shalom, alenu ve'al kol Yisrael v'yimru amen. May the source of peace send peace to all who mourn, and comfort to all who are bereaved. Together as a community, we say Amen.
We're going to join together in Mozi now. And as we do so, I want to just share a little bit of what I have in my Mikdash Me'at, as the rabbis told us to, or entreated us to create our own holy spaces. So I think you can see here, I have a white cover of linen that comes from my grandma. And underneath is a little plate that comes from my mom. And in between is this wonderful little challah that hopefully all of you have in your High Holy Day bag. So I'll ask you all to take them out now as we join in Mozi together. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, hamotzi lechem min haaretz. And please join me in saying Amen. Amen. B'te'avon.
B'te'avon.
So I wanted to offer these brief words as we conclude our services together tonight. Physically distant but spiritually connected, we stand here ready to enter this new year of 5781. We stand at the gate of opportunity, ready to enter. In this coming year, we seek hope as we cast off the fear. We welcome the sweetness of new beginnings as we leave behind the sting of a year empty and unfulfilled. We sound the shofar and we taste the honey as we move forward together, embracing the inevitable brokenness, but working together as one community to pick up the pieces as we build a year of wholeness, as we build a year of strength.
Eloheinu ve'Elohei avotenu v'imotenu, yehi ratzon shenizkeh levichotecha bishnat 5081. Our God and God of our ancestors, may we know your blessings in the year 5781. Eternal One, bless us and the whole house of Israel with renewed life, happiness and peace, comfort and courage, resilience and strength. May the words of our heart be acceptable to you. In the new year that stretches before us, we are forever grateful for the gift of life. And for that we say, Amen. Just before we conclude our worship this evening, just a few reminders. First, that our Rosh Hashanah celebration will continue tomorrow morning with a special service for families with young children at 9 a.m. on Zoom, followed by our full community worship at 10:30 a.m. here on YouTube. After we conclude this evening, we want to invite interested members of our University Synagogue community to follow the link you were provided over to Zoom, where you can join with other members of the community in breakout rooms to share dinner or honey cake or dessert or just wish each other a Shana Tova. The link is also available through the unison.com website. University Synagogue, in partnership with the Union for Reform Judaism and the Religious Action Center of the Reform Movement, is committed to making sure every voice is counted during this election season. As part of that commitment, we have pledged to do our part to make sure 100% of eligible University Synagogue voters participate in this year's election. Make sure you receive your ballot and make sure you fill it out and return it promptly. We want your voice to count. Watch your email for information about how you can further participate in our efforts with our Tikkun Olam committee, and let us know that you are part of our 100% voting effort. And a reminder that throughout these days, and indeed throughout the year, not just during the High Holy Days, we continue to collect for Sova. Now more than ever, those donations are so very needed. So please bring your donations in the bag we provided you in your High Holiday goodie bag to University Synagogue during weekday business hours. They will be safely and carefully collected from your car. We hope you'll take time to review the pamphlet you received in that High Holiday bag as well. It is filled with the schedules and links you'll need for these days and beyond. And now, from all of us to all of you, our wishes for a good, sweet, blessed, and healthy 5781. Let's join together now with Cantor Shapiro as we conclude our worship this evening with the singing of L'Shana Tova.
We turn now to our friends, the Melvoins, for a very important and special message at this time. Shana Tova.
Shalom. I'm Jeff Melvoin, past president of University Synagogue, and today I want to talk to you about George Gershwin, pickled herring.
You're not going to talk about those pesky white envelopes again, are you?
Actually,
Dad, look around. There are no envelopes. There are no congregants.
I know, but we still have the high holy days coming up, and there's still a pressing need.
But envelopes, really? With all the problems the Postal Service have been having? Don't you think it's time for a little Lador Vador to kick in?
I think it just did.
Hello, I'm Nick Melvoin. I remember my dad giving the High Holy Day appeal year after year when I was a kid. They were warm, funny, and effective. But that was yesterday. And as Lincoln said, the dogmas of the quiet past are inadequate to the stormy present.
Are you saying I'm obsolete?
I'm saying today we find ourselves in very different circumstances. Traditionally, the High Holy Day appeal funds programs beyond our existing operating budget. But this year, the need is more obvious and more desperate. We need your help to retain our dedicated administrators, teachers, and staff who work so hard every day to make University Synagogue the place we all know it to be.
Despite extreme cost-cutting measures, without your additional generosity at this time, we won't be able to cover salaries. It's as simple as that.
I remember my bar mitzvah like it was yesterday. I was standing here. It's admittedly a lot less intimidating with nobody in the audience. My parents were over there. My grandparents were over there. It's a great feeling to be back in this special place where we all have so many memories of community and hope, especially when things outside these synagogue walls are changing so rapidly. But now University Synagogue needs our support. If we want to keep these traditions alive, if we want to keep the Ner Tamid burning, we all need to do our part now to support the operations of University Synagogue and support those administrators, teachers, and custodial staff who work so hard on our behalf.
Okay, no more pesky white envelopes. You can give by check, credit card, or PayPal. Go to unison.org or simply call the synagogue at 310-472-1255. I know we've all been stretched thin during this difficult time, but we need to dig deep today so we can celebrate together again tomorrow.
In lieu of ushers walking down the aisle with baskets, I'm just going to stand here and stare at the camera with the hopes that you're all donating right now. Okay, now you can get back to Gershwin and pickled herring.
Maybe next year.
Good call. From our family to yours, a happy and healthy holiday season and a prosperous new year. Shana Tova.
How about some apples and honey?
Let's do it.